Hello and welcome to the Marketing Dilemmas podcast, brought to you by Cognism. I'm Liam, and each week we discuss real-world dilemmas faced by top marketers so we can share their challenges and learn from each other. Today, my guest is Florian, Marketing Director at Wire. Welcome to the podcast. So to kick off, as we like to, we would like for you to be able to let our audience get to know you and ask you, could you share two truths and a lie about yourself? And I will try and work out what the lie is.
Thanks, Liam. This is definitely going to be the toughest question on this show today. And then took me the longest to prepare. But let me try like this, yeah? First one, I've run a half marathon in under 2 hours. I was once the employee of the month at McDonald's. And as a kid, I declined 50 euros to eat a single strawberry because I just didn't like the taste.
Oh my gosh, that is a really difficult one. I think that might be the hardest one yet.
You were anticipating marketing truth. I think,
yeah. I just think all of them could be true, but equally all of them could just be a clever place to lie. So we've got running. I'm going to say that you have run the half marathon in under 2 hours. I feel like that's things people do. And running's a big thing now. So it's very popular at the moment. So I'm going to say that's a truth. And then it's just depending on whether you really despise strawberries or whether you ever worked at McDonald's. But I'm going to actually say that the strawberries the truth as well, because I think it's like a clever placed one. So and then I'm going to guess that maybe the employee of the month at McDonald's is the lie.
I'm super happy that you think I'm a big runner, but this is one of my biggest challenges. I'm not sure how you go about it, but balancing work and working out a lot is a challenge. But if we meet up next year, maybe this will be true. Yeah.
Okay, so which one is the so the running's the lie?
The running is the lie, exactly. Right. Yeah. I wish it would be true.
Oh my god, that's brilliant. What's the story behind the strawberry? When was this?
I think I'm just stubborn. I was stubborn as a child and I'm still now, but when I was like 8 years old, I was sitting in our garden with my grandma, and then she was so desperate that I wouldn't eat strawberries. She would even give me money for it. And I was like, no way. And then everyone was like, yo, Flo, you're so stupid for not accepting this. But yeah, now the story made it into a marketing podcast. So I think it was a good one.
That's funny. Do you eat strawberries now?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Yes. Depends how they come.
Exactly. And how much they pay me for it.
And I assume your McDonald's was part of your early career and
exactly
big part of it, or
exactly that was me traveling through Australia, and then somehow you have to make money. So I turned it into one of my biggest career achievement, and then still have the picture of it on my phone. So very happy about it.
Love that. So yeah, there you go. Working whilst traveling and still at selling. It can be done.
Exactly. Oh, that was actually quite beneficial also for the marketing career, right? To jump into different jobs early on. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that.
Love it. Okay, well, I feel like we've definitely got to know you a bit more through those, and I enjoyed those a lot. So actually, before we jump into anything else, I'd love to give you the floor to sort of let us know what Wire do. I know I found it interesting actually learning a bit more about the brand. So yeah, I'd love for you to allow some time to tell our audience exactly what Wire do and the problem you solve.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think the best pitch is to think of Wire as a secure Microsoft Teams alternative. It's 99%. It offers 99% of the features that Microsoft Teams has, but insecure. So organizations that put security as their top priority, especially public organizations, but also private organizations in critical national infrastructure. If you think of food, for example, the biggest German retailer, Schwarzgruppe, is, for example, rolling out wire to hundreds of thousands of their employees to secure their supply chain, for example, because they're responsible for, I think, 40% of the food we produce in Europe. So protecting their communication and collaboration is obviously at their core. And why wire and why wire now? I think is a good question, because in the current geopolitical environment, if you think of the relationship between the US and Europe, Donald Trump, the war in Russia and Ukraine, this really drives organizations to solutions like wire to secure their communication, because this is really where companies live and where so much information sits, that they care a lot about those information being secure.
Awesome. So there you go. If you have Teams or Slack, there is actually another alternative, which I don't think many of us knew about, and it's Wire. And you might be coming around. Who knows, like you said, with the changing landscape, it might be something that bleeds into more organizations. So yeah, it's cool to learn about it. So jumping onto the next question, which is, we'd like to sort of start by positioning the dilemma of the previous guest to you here to get your thoughts on it. So in the last episode, we interviewed Ben, marketing director at ReachDesk. ReachDesk is like a gifting platform. And his dilemma was how, once you've defined your ICP and you have your ICP and you're running with it and you're getting good success rates on and how it's improving win rates and aligning the company, how do you take time to be able to find new accounts that would like fit and grow and expand that ICP, with the assumption that there's always that fear that eventually you'll burn out your existing ICP and there's new ways and directions the product could move. So yeah, do you have how would you approach that dilemma? How would you approach basically the evolution of your ICP and finding the next direction for where you could move out and not getting distracted, I suppose, by all the possible opportunities, but doing it in a systematic and reliable way?
That's a good one. From a marketing perspective, early on, I was more concerned about burning through our ICP target list too fast. But I would assume, without having listened to the previous episode, that it's actually difficult to burn through your ICP list. I think it's just a matter of using different angles, improving positioning, coming up with different marketing campaigns in the end. So that's the creative part, I guess. How you stay relevant for the same ICP for a long time. And obviously, at one point you gotta expand, but it also comes with the risk of doing too many things or addressing too many problems at the same time. So I think it's really important to strike the right balance between expanding to different ICPs and really focusing and narrowing down on one ICP first, which is an interesting dilemma, actually.
Yeah, that's exactly what we kind of discussed, and I had the same thought, that actually I think sometimes we worry that you exhaust your ICP super quickly, but in reality, your ICP will sustain you for a long period of time. It actually takes a long time to influence that entire ideal customer, and then through that and through getting, obviously, building your brand presence within that ICP, building that market affiliation as well, you end up bringing in further opportunities that from outside of that you can then look to explore. I think then the issue is like, which ones do you look at and explore, and which ones do you just kind of like make sure that you don't get distracted with? But I think that's exactly what you were saying. but a definite dilemma that everyone faces at some point.
Exactly, especially early in people's career, they think, hey, we put out this ad, people have seen it twice, they know about it now, they get it. If they see it a third time, they're gonna hate us for spamming them, which is obviously not true. We all know how many touch points it takes to create awareness and to move people through the funnel stages. But definitely a good dilemma. Yeah.
So now we can jump onto your dilemma. So I'd love to know what your dilemma is that you're bringing to the show today. Can you give us the full picture and lay of the land?
Yes, I would call it internal marketing, to be honest, because especially early in my career, but still now I've been struggling with balancing like great external facing marketing, delivering MQLs, pipeline revenue, and all of that, while also making sure to be aligned internally, making sure marketing is seen, understood, and trusted internally. In the beginning, I was always seeing this as a distraction. Like, why do you need to explain what marketing does? Come on, go to our blog. All the articles are there. Follow us on LinkedIn. It's marketing. It's not rocket science. It's easy to understand. But over time, I understood that actually educating people internally, aligning with the different stakeholders across the different teams. It sounds cliche and sounds stupid, but I think many marketers forget this early on. And the problem is if you don't do it, if you don't pay attention to it, others shape the narrative of what marketing is doing. Others think about, there's conversations happening that you cannot really influence. And as a consequence, you will not be able to, the sales team will not loop you into calls. The product team will be launching product without really including marketing. But it's also smaller things that I'm sure we're going to unpack in the next couple of minutes. How did you approach that throughout your career, the internal marketing piece?
Yeah, I find it an interesting paradox that marketers need to market themselves, but they do. And I always tell the team about. I mean, I actually call it about like internal PR, and we need to do our internal PR to like so that the rest of the like company fully understands what we're doing and trying to achieve. I think you can do it in so many different ways, and it has to be sort of all encompassing. I think marketers can get a bit lazy with it sometimes. I think if we think that we can just hold one meeting with sales or just drop assets in Slack, then you can't like that will be enough. But it absolutely isn't. The education process with the business needs to be consistent and ongoing. And marketing needs to be involved in everything that they can be. So, and I think that is half in the turning up and having those regular meetings with sales. It's also turning up to like larger sales like meetings and all hands. It's owning a revenue target really importantly. I think that gives you that seat at the table that you need. I think it's also like launching the stuff you do as well externally as you do internally. So thinking about how you actually get assets and content into salespeople's hands and also train them and work them with it. Like the internal launch is actually almost as important as the external launch, or basically the same level, I find now. And making sure that everyone therefore is aware of it. And it's also actually not like just palming people off and thinking they won't understand it, and actually explaining the process behind your own strategy and your like, especially when it comes to paid media, exactly what you're doing there and why, and doing this on a like probably I suppose we probably do that on maybe like the whole top line strategy on an annual basis, but then on a smaller basis repeatedly in quarterly as well. So yeah, I think, and also like sharing, I think sharing the wins as well, and getting yourself recognized for wins. So, but I think that goes back to be honest, owning that revenue target. As soon as you own that revenue target, it becomes much easier to be recognized for wins. And then, where the marketing team is shouted out as much in the revenue channel as anyone else. So Yeah, that would be like some of my top line thoughts on it. But no, I totally agree. How's it showing up for you at the moment? Yeah, how is the dilemma showing up in at Wire?
I think actually it's not showing up. Actually, we managed to do. I wouldn't say we're doing good internal marketing. I'm 100% sure it can be improved a lot. But how it shows up if you're doing it the right way is that behind the scenes, people talk positively about marketing. People that you're not really in touch with, if you talk to them once, they're like, "Hey, Flo, marketing is doing a job. I see it everywhere. It's really cool what you guys are doing." And then I think it's these small comments and how. In the past, I've been thinking a lot about it, and you mentioned meetings, and obviously there's like sales and marketing alignment between marketing and a customer success team, and then product. There's structures in place, but I think the key thing to do is actually to show up on, in our case, on Wire. Show up in your group chat, share about the wins, share new content that we publish, share this great LinkedIn post where we announce something big. I think you need this awareness first, and it's not so much always, as you said, about the technical details and then why and how it works. I think in the beginning it's enough to always pop up there, and then people see, hey, marketing is doing something, they're going in the right direction, it seems to work. To hype everyone up a little bit. I think this is really the first step before you think about another meeting and more structures. Obviously, I think from time to time it definitely makes sense. You said on an annual basis, but maybe even connected to OKRs, for example, to share updates on marketing strategy, more prepared, more structured, with proper slide decks on what are we doing, why are we doing it, what's working, what's not working, and also turning that into smaller, digestible snippets that you can also share with let's say, a developer, for example, who is by nature further away from marketing. But getting started with, I would almost call it random updates on the Wire chat. What are we doing? Sharing about your work, I think, is a really good first step to build that awareness and relationship in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, we'll share and chat like anything. I mean, anything from blogs posted to new social posts to new case studies, and just have those in those relevant channels. Actually, a lot of the social posts go sort of just even in our general channel, and that's just to keep people, I think, or the activity like consistently top of mind. And in there, we can also explain what some of that is at the same time. I think one of the big things that we did actually, though, on getting an understanding of how people feel marketing is benefiting them is actually running our own sort of internal CSAT to both like the CS team and the sales team, asking not only like where marketing has impacted or helped them, but how they feel supported by us, and how they feel we compare to other marketing teams and things like that. And the data in there is really good, because it's funny because you could be doing everything right still, but there's something else missing, or there's some clear misunderstanding about why you're running something that then will come up in those strategies,
That,
or in those responses.
no,
Um,
sorry for interrupting.
so
That's
that's
super
okay.
cool. And I think one internal challenge that I see many times is that similar to getting started on LinkedIn, for example, that people feel weird about sharing about their own work, about promoting themselves. And I think a good tactic is to just lead by example. Yeah, if you as the marketing lead or the person being responsible for the marketing team, if you share about your own wins or activities proactively, it's easier for the team to follow. This is, I think, a big hurdle I've seen across different marketing teams that people need to overcome. Yeah, feels weird in the beginning.
Yeah, and I actually think you can take your. So we do a lot of like even on LinkedIn externally building in public because of the benefits that we see from that. People love it. You get great engagement. Obviously, we sell to marketers as well, so that's building, like talking about our own marketing strategies and building those in public gets great results. But like actually the work that we do to do that externally, we can also put in internally and do some of that building in public as well in those internal comms, which I suppose is what I see in the sharing in the channels and things like that.
Exactly.
Amazing. So what are the key things that you have tried? So I suppose you explained, like, I suppose sharing on Wire and making sure that basically you're continuously dropping in activity and sharing in that way. What are some of the other key things that you've tried in order to ensure that you have this sort of internal marketing activity going on and letting the team know what you're doing?
I think if we turn it around, or if we start with the things that didn't work out, I think you mentioned it briefly already. It's actually creating like overly detailed decks, really focusing on the details, on the perfect presentation, sharing them with the team. Nobody reads that. People don't have time for that. It's just another random post on the Wire chat, and people just skip it. And the next one is actually assuming that you just put out content there on the blog, on your like downloadable content or LinkedIn, wherever, and then assume people consume the content because they follow us on LinkedIn. This never worked. We touched upon the first topic already. It's about being visible internally, sharing wins. I think the CSAT you mentioned is really cool. I think at a company of our size, it's still possible to actively ask for feedback because we're still a small team. So you can reach out to people actually and say, hey, how can we improve collaboration? What do you think about marketing? How do you perceive us? And trying to understand what you really feel kind of in between the lines. And then obviously, I think that the two key things that the team shouldn't miss is that when you run campaigns for more important channels or initiatives, definitely share posts internally to launch them, explaining why we do it, how it ties back to the to revenue in the end, how does it impact others, do we want them how do we want them to participate? And then after campaigns, obviously, share a quick update with the team. Hey, what did we do? What worked? What didn't work? I think that's also an issue that I feel sometimes that it's easy to share the big wins, but to be really authentic, you also need to share, hey, this campaign didn't work as planned. Here we really fucked up. I think this creates the authenticity that it's needed for like a good perception of marketing. Yeah, those guys are honest. I can trust them. So you only share about mess ups. And then last but not least, from time to time, especially early on when you build marketing from scratch, when you're starting a new team, it should happen very early. Afterwards, it could be connected to OKRs or to annual kickoffs, for example, is to really think about a marketing strategy, create it top down and bottom up, include your peers include your peers in creating the marketing strategy. And then not just presenting it in the end, but also really co-creating it together to make sure this is not something that floated by himself, but it's really a joint company effort, because marketing doesn't work in a silo. Marketing only works if it's aligned with sales, with partnerships, with the customer success team, with the product team, and everyone else. If we achieve that, people feel included, people feel like, hey, we're sitting in the same boat, I think we're almost halfway there.
Mm-hmm. And what I'd love to know, what have you learned from or got from your peers that has been really helpful in that process? So, and I suppose what also have you learned that you can kind of ignore? Because obviously the more cooks you can sometimes, more cooks you can sometimes spoil the broth, and then it doesn't, and then there's so much information, lots of feedback, we don't know what to take. Like, I know that whenever we ourselves, we do those CSATs, we say, what do you need? What do you want? Case studies come out top every time. I could be generating 400 case studies a day and they would still stay case studies. Like, it's just always going to be a big thing. So it's like, no matter the fact that like 81% of people say that case studies is what they need, we just know that that's a super valuable piece of content, and they're really useful to them. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily got a case study problem, but obviously that's something we'll put our effort into. So I know that those sort of situations like come up. So yeah, what have you found super valuable? Maybe something you didn't know, and what have you sort of learned that you can be like, okay, that's a consistent background noise that I understand is important to them.
Exactly. And Liam, instead of creating another case study, you're interviewing me in the podcast. So I'm not sure how your sales team feels about that.
Yeah.
I think there's two types of topics or tasks, not sure how to call it. I think there's smaller requests that I've learned, if it's really something small that you can do in a couple of minutes, and I think with tools like ChatGPT that really sped up things now, you just do it. It's good for the relationship. You don't always need to question everything. If someone needs it, assume the good in people. Do it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and it's done. It's good for the relationship, good for the trust. And then if you need something, I'm pretty sure they return the favor. That's what I learned, because it increases opportunities where the customer success team sees you in emails with customers that then turn into a case study, or the sales team includes you when it comes to event planning. So I think it's the small things that kind of form the relationship, and you shouldn't say no too often. The second, I think, comes down to owning your marketing strategy and understanding how it impacts overall business strategy, because you can leverage that and explain the sales team, the product team, the customer success team, whatever team, about how their requests impacts the overall business strategy. How, if you do help them with request A, what impact does it have on other priorities? And I think it really comes down to educating people, really taking the time to explain them why you do it, or why you can't do it, or why it only goes to your list of topic, and then maybe in 2 months you're going to find the time to do it. I think it really comes down to education, and then over time that shapes or that builds the internal knowledge as well of what is marketing doing, why is marketing doing certain things, and then improves the relationship over time, improves the type of requests you're getting, and that's how I solved it in the past.
Yeah, I think that like that sort of relationship compounds, and then maybe you explain a few times why you do one thing and not another, or why, and then like people will slowly gain that understanding, and they also understand your goals and what you're trying to achieve ultimately to help them as well at the same time. So out of interest, and I think I know what your answer will be to this, but I want to ask it, but who do you see as, I suppose, responsible for the internal marketing of the marketing team? Do you see this as something done by the leaders of in the marketing team, or do you see this as a thing that each individual marketer in the team is responsible for?
Both. I think in the end, everyone is responsible for it, for sure. But as a leader, you need to lead by example, and then you can't expect that everyone on your team just does it. I think you also need to educate your own team why we should do it, show them situations where things went wrong, and then where we could have handled it better, and enable everyone to share about their work, and then create this internal marketing and internal alignment. And in the end, it's not just a marketing dilemma. I think in the end, it applies for each of the teams. Yeah, I think that the logic behind what we've just discussed also applies to the sales team, to developers, to the product team. I think it's always good to own the narrative when it comes to your own work, and that's why I encourage my team to share about what they're doing. It will not be always perfect. Not every update will get crazy engagement, but you need to get started. Yeah, you need to think about it. And some people, tend to almost spam everyone with too many updates. Some people are too scientific and overthink it way too much. But I think it's you got to start, and then you can shape it a little bit, give feedback to your team, and then coach them to make sure you find the right structure.
Yeah, I think you really make a very good point. It's like transparency across the board with all teams, which and sharing more and becoming a mini marketing department of their own in terms of how they market themselves is like actually key to anything. I mean, that just goes on to like the whole topic of breaking down silos, but yeah, I think it applies to everyone. It's not a marketing dilemma on its own. It's a each team dilemma. I know that from my perspective, it's always that I want to know as much as possible that's going on in the sales and product team as possible, because it obviously helps us to do our job better. And the last thing I want to see on one of those CSATs is some new information that I just didn't know about. Because then I was like, well, that's probably not the place that I need to find out about that. I probably need to find out about it in one of the meetings or in an email. So, yeah, totally agree with that. What does success look like for you? At what point do you go, right, we're doing a good job of like marketing ourselves internally? I feel like the company has a good understanding of what we do, and I equally have an understanding of what they require from us. How do you measure that success?
Yeah. To be honest, I struggle measuring the success because I think it's in the details, and the details lead to ideally a better marketing performance, more pipeline and more revenue source through marketing. Because by better internal marketing, you avoid creating a silo. Basically, you make sure that marketing is aligned and part of like actively working with the different departments. So I think it's small things like trust is increasing. You don't need to justify yourself a lot and then spend a lot of time on internal presentations and then the approval processes. People, hey, marketing is going in the right direction. We trust them, so you can move a lot faster. I think people provide better feedback. They feel like they feel heard. And if they see, actually, this morning is a great example. We had like a small a typo or an issue on our website, and instead of just ignoring it or putting it into a big group and blaming marketing for it, they know we've got a good relationship. Marketing really appreciates getting feedback. So they reach out to me. They assume the best only, and then, hey, like Flo, I saw this. I think you should work on it. And it's also things like people CCing me in emails with our customers. So I learn a lot more about our industry, about our customers through good internal alignment, through good internal marketing. And it's difficult to measure those things, in my opinion, because it comes down on a very fundamental level to being to not taking yourself too serious, and then being a good approachable human, is being able to manage relationships and then establishing trust. And I think many times we overthink this too much. Obviously, I really like the CSAT, for example, that you have implemented. I think I have to copy that at one point. But many marketing teams don't reach that stage, that state. They overthink it too much, and I think that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can get a general sense of this from what you're being included in, what you're like people are coming to you to ask for your opinion on and speak to you about. I think that like qualitative side and also just that relationship side is probably key and top. I think we've probably got to the level of doing a CSAT just because where the team's got bigger, and lots of different people are hearing different things, it's hard to then sort of collate that all together. And then that gives us some hard data. But actually, by the time that you get that CSAT, there's rarely stuff in there that is brand new, because we've all heard it across the floor in different ways where everyone's been building their own personal relationships with different people. So, yeah, sometimes it just compounds it, because otherwise it could be like, oh, so-and-so said this. And then it's like, okay, well, that's one person. But then you do a CSAT and it comes back and you're like, oh no, 80% of people are saying that, okay, we should listen. We need to take action on that more urgently. But yeah, I think it depends on the size and scale you get to, basically.
What was the biggest surprise you uncovered in your CSAT, if you want to share?
From the first, actually the last one was pretty standard. Like, I don't think we had like a huge surprise on that. I think from the first one though, it was that we needed to actually explain more like what we were doing. So I think the big feedback we actually got, despite thinking that we thought we were like communicating well internally, is big feedback was that they didn't really know how we were influencing, especially in sales side, how we were actually influencing deals. So we're running regular meetings for, especially on the ABM side, but they didn't really understand all of the elements and touch points that go into that. So I actually just needed to know we needed to get more in depth, and it's because we hadn't shared the whole picture. We kind of come up, aligned on accounts, sort of said the activity we'd be doing, things like that, but we didn't actually necessarily go right into the depths of it. And then that's what's changed. So then there's much more in-depth meetings. And it's actually interesting because they wanted to know all of that information. And maybe the assumption was we won't distract them with everything. The other part for us was content rollouts. I think there was an assumed knowledge of some content that that's especially with the CS team, assumed knowledge of content that then they didn't know at all. And we thought maybe we'd done our internal launch well enough, but clearly hadn't. So then that became like a big thing to us about how we actually make sure and activate that content, because it really, unfortunately, has to be like with anything, it's like a launch and then a launch again and a launch again, and you just never kind of stop talking about it.
And then there's a great the perfect PDF with perfect messaging, and then design is just sitting in some random Google Drive. You launched it, but nobody's using it. People don't know it exists. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there were other things where maybe we needed to re-explain our strategy because people were disappointed. So, like areas where there wasn't marketing coverage, and that was explained. But somehow, or along the way, people didn't understand that, had forgotten that. So then were upset that they felt that not supported. But then that's to re-explain the strategy and resources and things like that, and why that was done. So. But all of that matters, because otherwise people are just sat there being dissatisfied and like maybe unaddressed, and then thinking that we're not supporting them in any way. So yeah, so that's probably the main things. But it was quite interesting. But then when we would run in the second CSAT, we could run it with the benchmark that we wanted to improve against all those things.
Yes.
So that's why I think it was like less enlightening, but more of a measurement of how well we then improved on those metrics, which we were able to see improve. And then it's nice as well because you also get to see all the good stuff that people get to say about you too. It's not all learnings. You get to see all the stuff where you're doing a good job and people confirm it, and that's like rewarding for the team as well. So I think it helps boost morale.
That's the best part about internal marketing. Yes, you can use it to motivate the team, hype them up. Definitely.
Yeah. So maybe one last one on this. Is there if you're a small team, you're just starting out, don't have loads of I suppose means to share, like loads of different tech or platforms to do it through, you maybe don't actually have like a huge program as well at the moment. Where would you start? What would be your foundation building for starting right, so that your internal marketing gets off to a good start, so as you scale, you maintain it?
Yes, I think on top of the things we've already covered, from as simple as it sounds, just being active and then sharing about your work. I think a great tactic can be LinkedIn. Actually, I also started to kind of build in public and then share regular updates on my LinkedIn account about what we did this week, what's good, what's not good, and obviously it's beneficial for your own personal brand, but people within your company, they see your LinkedIn posts. So it doesn't even come across as internal marketing so much, but they see on a weekly basis what we're doing. They actually see if others are commenting on it. So it even adds like external validation. So the number one hack, if you want to call it like that I would recommend is so to be more active on LinkedIn, because it builds your personal brand. It helps you practice copywriting, finding the right hooks, finding out what's interesting and not, and also can become the foundation of good internal marketing, because it's not spamming your own internal chat groups about how great you are. We have launched this. This is working well, and so on. But it's on another platform. But people within the company see it, consume it, and appreciate it. That's, I think, one simple thing that you could do.
Yeah, I love that. And I actually spent the last couple of weeks making sure I was connected with. I'm still able to do this because we're 500 people, so it's not without the realms of possibility. But I made sure I was connected to everyone in the company. I do a fair bit of posting, and I think it's a place where we share a lot of our marketing strategy. And I thought exactly the same. If I and we share content there, right? So I thought I'm making sure I have everyone on the company connected with me, then I'll be able to make sure that we get that information out to them as well. So I think that's actually a great start. It's also mutually beneficial for yourself and for external marketing. So it kind of it kills two birds with one stone, which is a great idea to start with. Well, I think that's probably all we've got time for. But thank you so much for coming on, Flo. And hopefully you get through all this internal marketing, you can add Employee of the Month at Wire to the Hall of Fame alongside McDonald's. That could be the next step.
Exactly. Reach out to my boss. Maybe that's helpful.
Yeah. And good luck with any half marathon trading in the future. Maybe next time you'll come on, that'll be one of the truths, and it'll trip me up. But thank you so much for coming on. It was pleasure to have you.
I'll keep you posted. Thank you very much, Liam.
Cheers.